What's up everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the all-new 2021 Kia Sorento. So, they did a complete redo here for the Sorento for 2021, and I mean, it's got some very bold looks on the outside, and the inside is a radical change as well. I mean, it is very cool looking, especially this one is the X-Line trim that we're in currently with the Prestige trim. Kia did also drop off a non-X-Line version of an SX Prestige, which does have a little bit of a different trim, which you can see, and we'll kind of get into that more in a minute. But yeah, I love this leather color. I love the design of the dash. Everything's a little bit more trucky, I think, than it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's really nice. I am not crazy about this leather color. It is a little too orange for me, being like a brown. I know it's supposed to be a brown. It's just a little too orange, but I'm not crazy about orange anyways. So that's just a personal preference, but it does look really nice, and I think it really just sets this apart from a lot of other cars. Yeah,
there's a lot of cool things with this vehicle that it has. Like, panoramic roof is something you don't get in a lot of the other competitors. I mean, you've open pore wood, you have digital gauges, this huge infotainment screen, so many nice things about this interior. But anyway, getting back to these seats, first thing here, I also love they're heated, they're ventilated. We didn't try out the ventilation because it's freezing cold December, but ventilated seats in Kias are usually some of the best ventilated seats out there. They do a really good job, but I love the quilting pattern you have on it, the piping. They look a little bit more expensive, definitely, than, you know, old Sorento seats in the past.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, once again, this is a Kia, so, like, there's so many people that don't realize how nice Kia is really becoming. They're doing such a good job just with all of their cars. They're really stepping up their game, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think these are some of the most underrated interiors and exteriors. I think Kia's just like firing on all cylinders these days, and yeah, super comfortable seats. They also have lumbar adjustment.
But the best thing about these seats for a passenger especially is the fact that this seat has height adjustments for the passenger. It also has it for the driver, but I can go up and down and back and forth, and it's so great. I also have lumbar support, so that's also a plus, and so I'm very happy.
Yeah, and I mean, if you guys don't watch our other interior reviews, a height adjustable passenger seat is super rare, at least in non-luxury stuff. And so the fact that Kia went and put that in here is like ding, 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 like super awesome.
I'm so excited. I would get this car out of all the other cars just for this purpose.
Yeah, it is. It's great that they do that. So kudos to Kia. And so yeah, anyway, moving on there to the steering wheel here in this Sorento. It's a really great wheel. Has, you know, some thinner spokes here, a great 9-3 grip, nice 10-2 notches, just a few buttons here on the front of it, not too cluttered or anything. Has a nice stitching. You also have paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, which are metal plated. So they're plastic, but they're covered in metal, and so they are cool to the touch and feel a little bit more expensive than the usual plastic paddles you get in other vehicles. And I mean, for a 3-row family crossover to even have paddle shifters at all is a pleasant surprise, so great that they have that. And it's also a heated steering wheel here in the higher trims of the Sorento as well, which is a very nice feature to have, especially in the wintertime like now. But moving on to the gauges here in the Sorento, they are spectacular. So we have these 12.3-inch digital gauges here in these SX versions, and they're very attractive gauges. And aside from, I think, the Kia K900, I think this is the only other Kia that has fully digital gauges right now, and it's really crisp, very high resolution. I love how you have the different views depending on whenever you change it up into like sport mode. It looks a lot cooler. And you know, then you also have like the eco mode, which is a little bit more relaxing and stuff. And it's all very quick with the transitions and stuff too, which is great, because others like Ford, when you change the gauge appearance in their vehicles, it takes like 10 seconds before it finally switches over. This is very quick, very high-tech feeling. Now, as far as the center portion there, so it still does function like the old analog gauges basically, so there is no expanded map view or anything like that. So you basically just have your basic trim information, your safety info for adaptive cruise and stuff, and then it'll give you navigation instructions, and that's it. There isn't any audio display in there or anything like that, which is a little bit different. Some others do give you a little bit more info in that gauge cluster, but still super cool looking gauges, and I love that they switched over to the digital. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, another thing that's spectacular is that you have this 10.25-inch widescreen touchscreen display, and it's really crisp with the graphics. It looks great. It has a volume and a tune knob, which a lot of other companies still struggle to put a tune knob into their vehicles. This has both. You know, it's a nice high-tech feeling screen. I really like it a lot.
I will say it is a really impressive screen. The size is great, and I just think it's great.
Yeah, it's very easy to navigate the radio stations and stuff, having that tune knob. And I like the graphics on the radio stations. It's a very like vintage looking design, and just a little bit more fun than the normal bland, you know, menus you have in a lot of other competing vehicles. And you can also customize the home screen, so it can have whatever stuff you want displayed there. You can have the things you use the most within easy reach. It also does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that is standard across the board in the Sorento, but this screen is not standard. This is only in the higher versions of the Sorento. Lower versions get an 8-inch touchscreen, and interestingly enough, the 8-inch touchscreen has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the upgraded screen forces you to plug in for your smartphone integration. I'm not sure why. This is a thing across all Hyundai and Kia products that use this 10-inch screen. The new 8-inch screen has wireless. The upgrade does not. It's completely backwards. I have no clue. I was hoping that with the Sorento here, maybe they would have fixed it, since they couldn't have fixed it in time for the other stuff that they just came out with. But unfortunately, still is an issue here. And wireless CarPlay is really nice to not have to plug in, because then every time you hop in the car, it's right there. So that might be one reason to maybe go for a lower trim if you're okay with some of the less luxurious stuff you get in the lower version of the Sorento. You do get an upgrade, I think, as far as your connectivity. You also have the Sounds of Nature thing, which is essentially a cool way to show off this Bose center point stereo this has. This is a 12-speaker stereo, and it sounds really great, especially with the Sounds of Nature. And we've tested that out in the Sonata in the past, and a few other vehicles.
Yeah, and just don't run the rainy day when you need to go to the bathroom, because you will need to pee if you hear that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So yeah, there's lively forest, calm sea waves, open air cafe. I don't know, it's kind of cool because it does sound really high definition with the sound and stuff, but yeah, just kind of a funny little thing in these new Hyundais and Kias. But yeah, overall, a really great system, and it is also nice that it can have a split screen functionality if you want to have a little bit more info displayed on there as well. Coming down to the climate controls here in the Sorento. So this whole area is very rugged looking, in my opinion, at least, with the vertical air vents and stuff, and just a nice simple little display for your climate controls. Nothing too complicated there. It's not busy at all with the buttons in this interior, and so I like that there's, you know, just some simplicity here. And I also like how they took a little cue from the Telluride, where you have your heated and cooled seat controls here on these little I guess bridges or little pillars. It's not grab handles like it is in the Telluride. They actually put them on the grab handles in that. This doesn't have grab handles, but a similar type of design theme going on, and just a few buttons here behind the shifter. But then moving on to the storage spaces here in the Sorento, that is very good. I would say it's on par with most other vehicles in this segment. Not best in class maybe, but still very good. So anyway, right beneath those climate controls, you'll see a nice large bin, which does have a wireless charging pad. You also see three USB jacks in there. 2 are for charging, and 1 is actually for data, and that's the one you need to plug in for your smartphone. And then you also have large pockets in the doors with a bottle holder. There's also 2 cup holders here back in the middle, another little cubby behind that, and even this little cutout you have in front of the center armrest is also could be used as a little cubby as well. But other things in this area, though, one thing I'm a little bit annoyed by is they didn't pad this center tunnel. So this is all hard plastic, and I could see that, you know, maybe in the lower trims, but in this upper X-Line trim, I was hoping this would be a little bit nicer. In the Telluride, it's covered in a little bit of material, but it's not super soft in that either. But it would have been nice for them to put a little bit of padding there just to make the upmarket experience in the Sorento complete, in my opinion. But anyway, the center armrest is nice and softly padded, and has a good amount of softness to it. And then you open that up, and then you'll see a little removable bin here in the top, and then you have a nice large bin here in the bottom, and you can fit lots of stuff in there. But one other little exclusion is that there is no normal power outlet here up front in the Sorento. There's no cigarette lighter style power outlet, which means if you're someone like myself that uses a dash cam and plugs into the cigarette lighter, you can't run a dash cam that way. If you also have any other accessories that you plug in with a normal cigarette lighter, you're going to have to make sure your accessories can run off USB or something, because there is no actual socket, which is, I think, the first vehicle I've encountered, at least in a long time, that has not had a power outlet like that. So that's one little interesting thing. There is one of those in the trunk, surprisingly enough, but not up front here for some reason. But then moving on to the back seat here in the Sorento. So all versions with the turbocharged engine actually have the captain's chair. So the only way you get a bench there in the Sorento now is if you go for the base LX or the S trim. And then when you go up to SX or higher, which are all, or the EX, all have turbo engines. All of those are 6-seater only. You only get a 7-seater in those lowest 2 trims, which is a little bit of a strange packaging setup in my opinion. But anyway, that's the way I decided to do it. And so those second row seats are very comfortable back there, but they're a little less luxurious than the Telluride, because the Telluride in its fully loaded trim can have heated and cooled second row seats. You don't even have any heating in those second row seats here on this, so it isn't quite as luxurious as the Telluride in that way. But there is plenty of room in that second row, and so I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself with the seat reclined all the way back as far as it'll go. I easily have about 5 inches or so of legroom to spare back there. You'll also see when you look forward there's dedicated air vents as well as a USB jack and that normal power outlet back there, so nice to have all those. You'll also see the seats have little built-in nets in the side, which you could hold like another bottle or something in there. There's also fold-down little armrests you can see there, and in those doors back there they also have bottle holders in the bottom of the doors and a little cup holder in the top part of the door as well, so nice to have both of those. And so I'd say as far as that goes, they did a pretty good job in that area. And then moving on to the third row here in the Sorento, that is an interesting case. So this is the only vehicle in this segment that even has a third row. All the other midsize SUVs like a Honda Passport, something like that, Ford Edge, none of those even offer that. So this is kind of in a segment on its own, really, which is kind of cool. But because of that, this third row is not definitely as roomy as the Telluride's third row. So if you do want to use the third row on a regular basis, I'll tell you right now, just spend the extra like $2,500 and get a Telluride. But if you're just going to use the third row on every once in a while, especially for kids and stuff, it should be fine. One great thing about the third row is it's very easy to access. You can either, again, walk through the middle here in these captain's chairs versions, or there's power buttons on the side of the seat, and you just hit that and it slings itself forward very quickly, actually. And that's something that very few companies actually do. Honda does it in the Pilot, and then you have, I think, the same thing in the Kia Telluride, of course, the Hyundai Palisade. And I think that's about it as far as anyone that does that power thing. And that makes it so much easier to get into that third row. But anyway, in that third row there, again, me being 5'9", with the second row seat slid forward as far as it'll go, I have about an inch or so of legroom to spare, so it's actually pretty comfortable. The only thing is the seat bottom is very low, so my knees are like really up high sitting back there, but I do have enough space. I also have enough headroom back there, just barely. If you're like 6 feet, you're going to be cramming your head, but if you're under 6 feet, you should be able to fit back there with enough headroom. And then when the seat is pushed in that forward position, by the way, in the second row, I still have about an inch or two of legroom to spare in that second row. So you could conceivably fit 6 adults in here pretty comfortably still, as long as they're not over 6 feet tall. But then if you do want the maximum amount of space in that second row and you push that seat all the way back, then I am crammed into that back seat. Like I'm like, curled up in a ball basically, trying to fit back in that third row. So, and there is also a middle position as well if you want a happy medium. But so we'll just entirely depend on how much space you need in that second row as far as how usable the third row is. But the Telluride has much more space in its third row and would be the better pick, especially because the trunk space is also better between the two, which I'll get to in a second. But other things, other amenities in that third row is that each side has their own USB jack, which is great. They also have cup holders and large cubbies there. And then on the passenger side, that's where you'll see another one of those traditional power outlets back there. But then moving on to the trunk space here in the Sorento. So with the seats folded down, it's a very good amount of space. I would say it's larger than probably even a lot of the other mid-size SUVs out there, or at least on average, if not slightly better. So plenty of space back there. The floor isn't too low or anything, but if you open up the floor, there is a little bin there on the left-hand side to fit a few extra items, but it's not massive or anything, but a nice little extra space nonetheless. But then whenever you push up that third row and bring it up, fully in its normal position, then it's tight in that trunk area. I mean, you can fit, maybe 5 or 6 grocery bags or something like that back there, but I don't even think you could fit a normal size suitcase standing up back there. Like, it is not much space. So if you're going to never take more than 4 people on a road trip in the Sorento, go for it. But if you're going to use that third row on a long trip, you're going to have to come up with some other way for carrying everyone's luggage, because it's not going to fit behind those third row seats here in the Sorento. And that's something where the Telluride does have a superior advantage, because with that you can stand up several suitcases. There's still a decent amount of space in that third row in the Telluride, again, for only about $2,500 more, trim versus trim. And so that's really I think the biggest competitor to the Sorento here is the Telluride, because you're only a couple $1,000s difference And if you're buying a vehicle this large, chances are you probably do want the most usable third row possible and the most storage space possible. But if, you know, the Telluride feels a little too big for you, or you don't like the styling or something, this could be a really nice happy medium if you don't want to commit to, you know, one of the other large 3-row crossovers in this in that segment. You know, this is kind of a nice little happy medium to bridge the gap and, you know, still give you that usability, but in a slightly smaller package. And this certainly does feel a little bit easier and smaller to drive than the Telluride, which really does feel pretty big. But yeah, overall, I think they did a fantastic job with this interior. I think it's, you know, feels expensive, looks expensive, and also, like I mentioned earlier, Kia did provide us with the SX Prestige non-X line, and so that you can see has metal trim instead of the wood, this open pore wood. But I love this open pore wood. I personally would go for the X line, I think, just for that alone. It's such a nice look.
Yeah, it looks great, and it really just ups that luxury feeling.
Yeah, that, I mean, combined with like metal plated door handles, they feel a little more plasticky than like the paddle shifters do, but I mean, just everything's very chunky and large and just feels expensive.
Yeah, it's really nice. It just really is impressive.
The one other little thing we did notice though at night that we were surprised by is there's no ambient lighting here. And that's kind of pretty common these days, you know, among the competitors and just in general. And even in other Kia stuff, I think the Telluride has a little bit of ambient lighting in it. And so we hopped in this at night and we were like, wow, it's kind of dark in here. We're used to ambient lighting.
Yeah, it would be really nice if they just added it. And there's plenty of spaces to add it too. Like there's little bits of metal here, and honestly, I think like it could be easily added, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense to add it in those places, and I think that would really jazz up this cabin at night to make it feel a little bit more exciting. But other than that, I mean, we're truly nitpicking here because it's such a nice interior. Yeah. Especially as tested, this one is under $44,000. So a little bit on the high side. These do start just over $30,000 for a base Sorento. But, you know, I think it definitely feels well worth those price tags for sure.
Yeah, and you do just get that bang for your buck for sure.
Yeah, with, you know, Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. You know, the value of Kia's is always really, really strong, and the Sorento continues on with that. But yeah, that's all our thoughts here on the interior of the 2021 Sorento. Be sure to go watch the driving review if you want to see what it's like to drive here in the Sorento. But yeah, we really like it a lot. But let us know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Thanks to Kia for providing us here with not one but 2 Sorentos here to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.